Jon Bernthal just returned as Frank Castle in The Punisher: One Last Kill, and it got me thinking, is he actually the best version of the Punisher we've ever had? In this video, I'm going to look at the 4 live-action versions of the Punisher and let you know which one I like best. And I'm not talking about just who was in the best TV show or in the best film, but who I think represents the Punisher the best. So you'll definitely want to stick around because I think some of my picks are going to be a little bit spicy. But before all that, let's talk about Punisher: One Last Kill real quick. So I watched it. It was fine. I just don't really know what the point of it was, really. We get Frank Castle at the beginning, sad, depressed, hallucinating, thinking about eating a bullet, and then something happens and a bunch of no-name criminals are coming after him, giving him an excuse to just slaughter them. And I think what they're doing is trying to make Frank Castle a hero, a defender of the innocent, more so than that single-minded engine of destruction that he is, full of vengeance and hate and just sorrow and darkness. And I don't know if I really like that, but I get that they're pushing Punisher into the MCU, into the new Spider-Man film coming out this summer, into the Avengers and all of that. So I understand, but it's not really what I want from the Punisher. So now that that's out of the way, let's take a look at the 4 live-action versions of the Punisher and see which one I like best. Let's start with my number 4 pick, and that will be Ray Stevenson in Punisher: Warzone. Ray Stevenson has a great look as the Punisher. He's big, he's tall, he's imposing, he's intimidating. He looks like he can handle himself. He looks like the Punisher. The film is brutally violent, but because of the camp and the cheese in the film, it doesn't carry the same sense of weight that some other films do. And the fact that the film is pretty bad doesn't really help him very much either. Jigsaw and Looney Bin Jim are just very over-the-top, silly kind of villains that don't really feel like they fit in a live-action Punisher series. I know they're classic comic book villains, but in this, they just don't feel like they fit. The whole storyline of him killing an undercover cop and then trying to make amends with the widow and his daughter. I don't know if this is the Punisher I really want to see. And it's not really Ray Stevenson's fault. It's just what he had to work with. So unfortunately, that's why I have Punisher: Warzone and Ray Stevenson as my number 4 version of live-action Punishers. Now, are you ready for another hot, spicy take? At number 3, I have the Thomas Jane version from Punisher 2004. Look, I like the story and the setup, and I think Thomas Jane is a great actor. And I get that this is an origin story, and that explains a lot of the film. He's not really the Punisher yet in this film. He's Frank Castle, a grieving husband and father who is overcome with sadness and remorse about his family being murdered, who concocts this elaborate scheme and plan to get revenge on the people responsible. But I just don't know if he's perfectly right for the role of the Punisher. He doesn't have that look. He's a little bit on the smaller side. He's not super intimidating. And yes, they gave us a sad, depressed Punisher, but they just didn't go far enough. All we really saw was him kind of drinking and being alone in his apartment. The neighbor's story, there was a lot of it. And there's a lot of other stuff versus him actually going out and getting revenge. And him scheming and concocting this plan of revenge doesn't really feel like the Punisher either. What the Punisher normally does is just grab a gun and go and kill people who are responsible or he feels need to be killed. This might be bad to say, but he feels too human to me. He's grieving. He's trying to process what happened, but he's making connections with the neighbors. He's scheming. He's concocting. He's doing all this stuff, instead of just being this completely broken down shell of a man, which is kind of what you need in the Punisher. And I just didn't see that in this version. So despite me loving Thomas Jane as an actor, I have him as the number 3 live action version of the Punisher. And if you think Thomas Jane at number 3 is crazy, like and comment on this video, subscribe to the channel, help me grow, and let me know how wrong I am. And at number 2, I have the Dolph Lundgren version of The Punisher from the 1989 film, The Punisher. Now, I know this film doesn't have the greatest reputation, but I think it's a bit underrated. It has this very dirty, gritty, sleazy feel to it that I think is missing in a lot of the Punisher films like Warzone and Thomas Jane's version. And I like what they did with the Punisher in this film. He doesn't speak very much. He doesn't really make a lot of friends. He doesn't try to make connections. He doesn't do these big, giant schemes. He just has this single-minded, hollow, relentless drive to kill as many people as possible. What I think this film does well, too, is present him as a very broken man. When he's finally caught and his ex-partner is talking to him and he's saying, you know, you're sick in the head, you're mentally ill. He's like, no, I'm not. He's like, what do you call 125 murders in 5 years? And he goes, work in progress. Like, that's cool because it really shows him as this, like, completely gone individual. There's no reach in this guy. There's no reasoning with him. He knows what his mission is. He knows what his goals are. There's nothing else there for him. The Frank Castle they knew is long gone. Only the Punisher remains. And they're scared of him. And I think a lot of people in this film are scared of him. And I think that's the right feel for the Punisher, because when he's presented as a hero, it just doesn't really work. He's not necessarily a villain, but he's right on the cusp of being an anti-hero and a villain, because some of the stuff he does is absolutely brutal. And I think that's the version of the Punisher that works best in live action. He's a depressed, hollowed out engine of destruction pointed at bad guys. If you just turned him a little bit and instead of bad guys, it was everybody, he'd be considered an absolute villain and a complete monster. He's just right on that borderline, and I think that line, it makes all the difference. Now, yes, this film has some camp and some cheese to it too. There's ninjas. There's a subplot of mafia children being kidnapped because they're so weakened from all the killing that he's done. But this presents one of the best versions of the Punisher. Dolph Lundgren looks the part as well. He's big, he's tall. His face is very sunken and dark and depressed. His eyes are hollowed out. You see him living in the sewer in just darkness and filth. He's talking to God about whether what he's doing is right or wrong, and he's still waiting for an answer. This is just a very broken down Punisher, basically as far down as you can possibly go. And so that's why I think the film is a little bit underrated, and that's why I think Dolph Lundgren's version of the Punisher from the 1999 film The Punisher is my number 2 pick. My number 1 version of the Punisher is Jon Bernthal. Now, I think his best presentation of the Punisher was when we first met him in the beginning of Daredevil Season 2. I thought this version of the Punisher was excellent. Dark, brooding, single-minded, out for revenge and punishment, extremely violent. He's not scheming, he's not concocting, he's not out to make friends or make connections, even though he does a little bit. He's just on a war path and just going through everybody. And when we do get to see him and we do get to hear him talk and interact with people, you see just how broken, depressed, and hollowed out this individual really is. And I think that's great. I also think this film does a good job of presenting him almost as a villain for most of the series. He's not Daredevil, who's beating up a bunch of people, putting them in jail, and defending the innocent. He's going out to kill bad guys and make sure they can't fight again. There's that whole rooftop scene between him and Daredevil where they have this discussion about, you hit them, they go to jail, they get back out to hurt people. I put them down for good. They never hurt anybody again. He mentions, you're one bad day away from being me, how close that line is between hero and avenging angel, I guess. So that is a great version of the Punisher, in my opinion. I think as his character evolves from Daredevil Season 2 to the 2 seasons of his solo show, to Daredevil Born Again, to One Last Kill, he becomes a little too humanized, I guess. We see too much of him. We see too many of his friendships and relationships forming. And also, I think he's better as not the lead, but as a big part of a season, as a villain or an antagonist to our hero. He works best the way he was in Daredevil Season 2, where he can play off Daredevil, Karen Page, and everyone around him. I just remember kind of the intro of him in Daredevil Season 2, where he's stalking through the hospital, taking shots, and you're like, whoa, he's shooting at innocent people. He's not worried about hitting anybody. But on the outside, it looks like that. And to anyone in that scene, they can think that he would kill them in a heartbeat. They make them scared. And that's what I think is so great about this Punisher. He could kill anybody in that room. He just won't. And so now that he's back and he's defending the innocent and he's forming relationships, they're kind of moving him away from that anti-hero vigilante style to more of a still dark character, but more heroic, where he's actively going out to protect people. I don't know if that's exactly the version of the Punisher I want to see, but it is what it is. And I think that's what we're going to get going forward in Spider-Man, and then if he's in the Avengers film as well. But I do know Jon Bernthal brings it his all. He has the look, he has the feel, he has the voice and the tone. He has that depressed, hollowed out, sunken, just remorseless look about him. And I think he just does a great job. I love him as the Punisher. I think he's a great actor regardless of what role he does. So obviously in this role, he kills it. So there you have the 4 live action versions of the Punishers, ranked how I like them. For me, I think the takeaway is that the best Punisher is not the one who has the best film or TV show, or who has the biggest guns, or who looks the part. It's who embodies this broken, damaged person the best, and who we can see on screen as this kind of remorseless killing machine, because I think that's what the Punisher is. So let me know in the comments what you think. How would you rank these 4 live action versions of the Punisher? Was I way off? Was I correct? Is Dolph Lundgren a little high? Is Thomas Jane a little low? I don't know. Just let me know. Until next time, stop scrolling, start watching.